Minister, two of the issues that faced the European Council in recent days must go down as seismic events in recent European history, these being COVID and Brexit. It is not unfair to say that the Union was already challenged with defending the impacts of Brexit before the body blow of COVID arrived. The COVID story is probably taking centre stage now, given the upheaval it has created, both economically and socially, for the bloc of 27. All countries are in the pendulum swing of lockdown and feeling the economic and social effects. That being said, European integration has also proven itself by the joint collaborations and development in vaccines, which are presently under consideration by the European Medicines Agency. On approval, significant mobilisation of resources will be required to inoculate and protect the European population, and Ireland will also have to engage similar activity in lockstep to ensure that we defend against the virus until a level of herd immunity has been achieved, and we can continue to remain in that way. This will require vigilance and compliance and will only prove possible if vaccine take-up is successful and European financial country supports are of the significant order required. The Council, it appears, are prepared to make significant versatile funding provisions and also to achieve agreement in order to implement a multi-annual budgetary and recovery fund, the outline of which was drawn up in July. On the agenda also, there was an ambitious objective to achieve climate neutrality for the European Union by 2050. As part of this commitment, an ambitious proposal to a reduction of at least 55% by 2030 has been committed to and gives credibility to Europe's leadership on climate as the Union marks the 5th anniversary of the Paris Accord. As well as creating benchmarks for how the EU seeks to initiate climate reductions, this ambition will have significant effect on Irish emissions and must surely herald the need for a whole-of-government approach to climate action and change. We have heard much about the possible reductions in our greenhouse gas emissions through taxing policy, innovations in housing retrofits, electrification in motorised transport, renewable energy developments, as well as moves away from fossil fuels in energy production. Although laudable, many would suggest that some of our climate ambition is not achievable in the timeframes committed to without significant and radical social change. Our target for the penetration of electric cars, for instance, within our car fleet to 2030 has shown to be overly optimistic, considering the availability and cost of electric vehicles, allied with the infrastructural capital developments required to provide a feasible network of charging points around the country. The move away from utilising turf in our electricity generation heralds a new lease of life for the Irish bog, but we must implement just transition to ensure viable new work streams for those who have to cease employment in that industry. The issue of Brexit is a particular concern for Ireland, and yet it gets little mention in the post-Euro summit press briefings, presumably because the work is ongoing. The worsening unemployment figures announced in recent days in the UK as a result of COVID will hopefully focus attention on all parties in the UK to commit to a deal to minimise further economic harm to the UK bloc, and in that regard, this Parliament resolutely supports such an outcome. The relationship between Europe and the United States was also a discussion point, it appears, and hopefully Ireland can be a strong beneficiary in terms of future White House policy, both in trade and immigration policy, as well as in developing further our strong US trade links. President-elect Biden may have come along just at the right time in terms of providing a backstop to the Northern Irish protocol to Brexit and hopefully perhaps to COVID-19 as we await vaccine deployment. European Banking Union appears also to be positive from media reports, which have been credited with contributing to financial stability and helping to maintain finance to economies impacted by COVID. Financial instruments were also on the agenda, and banking union and the question of progress in capital markets were under discussion. All of this dialogue is as a result both of our membership of the EU Council, but also our dependence on EU funding to provide a lifeline to our economy, given the significant deficits we are presently running. It is important that we continue to be proactive Europeans and positively engage towards the European project, particularly given now the fact the UK has gone in an alternate direction. A previous minister in this House years ago suggested that Ireland was closer to Boston than Berlin. That statement, if made today, would require some scrutiny. There is no doubt that Ireland's future is now inextricably bound with Europe like never before, and that our future economic prosperity will largely rest on not alone our place in Europe, but also how we adapt to the constraints of European federalist thinking. 2020 has taught how vulnerable our country is to political, economic and social upheaval not of our making. That is now a fact, and wishing otherwise will not make it so. Our only course of defensive action into the future as a small European player is to become the best pound for pound performer in the European Union. We must continue to invest, to innovate, to educate and to execute microeconomic and social policies that continue to ensure Ireland remains a force to be reckoned with. Though small in stature, our representation within Europe must continue to exert influence in future EU thinking. Issues similar to COVID and Brexit will appear and disappear across the European horizon over coming years. Our island's mission must be to ensure that when decisions are being taken, that we have a place at the top table. To that end, I commend the ongoing work of the Taoiseach, Tánaiste and Minister for Foreign Affairs and all our other actors and state agents who continue to contribute positively to Ireland's future standing on the European stage.